welcome to Film Companion. I'm Smriti Kiran, and coffee is a integral part of my mornings. But what's different today is that I'm sitting on a rooftop in New York with the incredibly beautiful and talented Mischa Barton. Mischa, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you.
The first thing I want to ask you, Mischa, is that what were you're playing a journalist in Bhopal, A Prayer for Rain. What were your references when you approached this character?
So, I mean, she's one of the completely fictitious parts of an otherwise entirely true story. So she really was something that we were able to build ourselves. So we kind of went through a few different phases with her in deciding really like who she should be. I looked into all of the classic journalists, like from the Diane Sawyers down the line, and kind of just when they were young and really out doing investigative reporting kind of stuff, and just took a look at that. That was a little bit of inspiration, but really like the idea is she works for Paris Match, and she kind of is on the road, and like we messed with her being from a lot of different places and stuff, and then went well with what felt right, you know.
What was your experience like shooting in India?
It was fantastic. It really was. It was one of those really, like, I look back with such fond memories. You know, it was a great time in my life because it's about 4 or 5 years ago now.
Exactly.
So, you know, I was that little bit younger in my 20s, really idealistic, like really, I had a very spiritual time, you know, I just had a really nice time. And it was my first time going to India. So I was all about it. The colors, the smells, the clothes. I just had a fantastic time. And my family came out a little bit. My dad came, and he never comes when I'm filming usually. He usually only comes when it's a really good location, like India, or he was really curious about Russia, so he came when I was in Russia. So you know when Dad shows up, it's because he thinks it's going to be interesting. And we actually went down and spent Christmas together in Goa, and so it was really nice.
Mischa, coming back to your career, you started really young. So when you start that young, you know, when you start at the age of 9, is acting even a choice? I mean, are you aware of what is happening with your life at that point of time?
You know, yes and no. I think it's just a little bit of, it just happens, you know, because the first person who ever drew me in was this director, Tony Kushner. But what really happened first was I went to summer camp here in New York in the city, and this mom of another kid came up to my mom and was like, oh, she has to, you know, you have to get her into acting. She's got great stage presence, which I think it is completely untrue at the time in retrospect, because what she was referring to was this terrible little depressing monologue I wrote when I was like 9 years old, 8 years old, off at summer camp. And it was, you know, it was kind of dark material, really. I was like, everybody else was running around like riding horses, and I was holed up inside like writing these monologues with the art kids, which, you know, it was one of those camps where you can really kind of like pick your little clique. And and she was sold that I had a career ahead of me, and I guess she wasn't wrong, but it was just one of those snowball effects. And I had I've always enjoyed having adults treat me as peers from a young age. I was not somebody who really hung out with the other kids. I wasn't a cool kid, and I didn't really fit in, so it was nice to be, I would just escape off into this world of theater and film, you know. I would be at school and nobody even knew I was an actor. So I actually, for a long time, I really wrestled for a normalcy and a normal childhood, and I got it for a long time. So, you know, I would go to public school here in the city, and then I would go off and disappear for 2 months, and this is how liked I was. Nobody would even notice that I was gone. And then until...
Very hard to believe.
Yeah, no, seriously. And then one day, I remember The Sixth Sense came out, and then they started articles in like local papers in New York, got more recognition. But even that didn't break enough for people to really notice. It was definitely The Sixth Sense that was the one that ruined my life. No, I'm just joking. But that's when the other kids were like, ah.
Oh, she's acting. So now I'm going to say something that I think people say to you all the time. But OC, how can we not talk about Marissa? You know, she has cut across boundaries. It's your big breakout role only because of the fact that, you know, it became overnight success, and I think it's been a guilty pleasure for everyone. What was the experience like to play Marissa?
It was interesting, you know, again, I was living in New York and I went off to Los Angeles to do a small role in something and then kind of got sucked into this, like, in this weird chain of events. So McG had everything to do with me getting the job. I didn't even know what the OC was. I had no clue. I didn't understand. They really had to explain it to me. And, you know, I'm sitting there with like this British mum too, and they're just like explaining, oh, you know, she should leave high school and come out and do this. And so it was quite funny. But everything happens for a reason, and really the reason behind that was I was so different from this other. I didn't know what it was, and everybody that they had auditioned in California who really maybe was that character, it was too close, and they told me we want somebody to play it who isn't that, who's going to bring something else to the character. And so yeah.
Mischa, what's the one piece of, you know, you're somebody who's been working for a lot of years, you're really young, and you know, there is a whole journey that you've traversed. What is the one piece of advice that you would like to give to people who are starting young in show business?
Oh, I don't know. It's tough because you can't really, I mean, you can give advice to somebody who's like 19 or 17 who's starting off in the business, but the truth is they're going to say that they hear you and that they understand, but you're 17, so what are you going to say? You know, I've had this because I've got, you know, some actors who are friends who are young, and they're really young, and of course they, you know, you hear it, but it's a journey you have to take for yourself.
Thank you so much, Mischa. Thank you so much for talking to me. If you enjoyed that conversation, keep watching Film Companion.
Subscribe to the Film Companion on YouTube to get your film fix.